Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It was nearly 1:45 a.m. when Alex stumbled into the Hollow Tap, a grimy little bar tucked beneath the elevated tracks in a rundown part of the city. The place was barely lit, smelled like damp wood and spilled beer, and was filled with just a handful of regulars, their heads bent low over dirty glasses. Alex wasn't planning to stay long. He just needed a drink, something to wind down after a fight with his girlfriend and a long shift at the warehouse. The bartender, a gaunt man with deeply sunken eyes, didn't speak much. He just poured Alex a whiskey, gave a nod, and disappeared into the back room. There was something off about the place, though Alex couldn't quite name it. Maybe it was the strange silence that fell after the door shut behind him, or how none of the other patrons looked up or made a sound. They just sat there, like statues frozen in time. Alex tried to break the tension, raising his glass in a lazy toast. "To the night," he muttered. No one responded. He downed the whiskey quickly and was about to ask for another when he noticed something strange. The mirror behind the bar didn't reflect him. It showed the stools, the bottles, even the flickering neon sign outside the window. But not him. His stool was empty in the mirror. He blinked, rubbed his eyes. Still nothing. Before he could say anything, the bartender reemerged, now with a stiff smile. "You see it, don't you?" he asked softly, sliding another whiskey across the bar. Alex hesitated, but picked it up. "See what?" The man leaned in. "Most don't, not at first. But you walked in here hurting, angry. That makes it easier for them to notice you." Alex frowned. "Who?" The bartender's eyes shifted toward the regulars. Alex followed his gaze and for the first time realized that none of them were moving at all. Their faces were blank, unmoving, too still. And then he saw it. One of them, a woman at the far end of the bar, had what looked like a long tear down the side of her cheek. Not a wound, more like unstitched skin. Fake, like a mask peeling back. Alex stood up, heart pounding. "Okay, what the hell is this?" The bartender didn't answer. The lights dimmed further. One of the patrons turned, finally, revealing a face that wasn't a face at all. Beneath the peeled mask, its features were all wrong. No eyes, just sockets, the mouth a gaping slit filled with tiny twitching fingers instead of teeth. Alex backed away toward the door, but when he turned around, the door wasn't there anymore. Just more bar, more booths. Endless booths. The entire layout of the place had shifted when he wasn't looking. "You shouldn't have toasted the night," the bartender said, his voice deeper now, as though layered with others. "That's the invitation. That's how they come." Alex screamed for help. No one outside could hear. He tried to run, but every door he opened led back to the bar. Sometimes it was empty. Sometimes it was full of those things. Things that wore human skin like costumes. One time he opened a door to find himself watching himself sit back down at the bar, over and over, drinking that first glass. Trapped in a loop. They didn't kill him. That would have been merciful. Instead, they made him a part of the show. Now he sits near the end of the bar, staring, unmoving, like the others. If you go into the Hollow Tap and you look closely, you might see him. His eyes still move slightly, ever so slightly, scanning for anyone who might see him, anyone who might notice the mirror, anyone who might toast to the night. And if you do, run. Don't look at the bartender. Don't speak to the others. And whatever you do, don't drink the whiskey.
Story number 2.
Late one night in a rundown part of the city, there was a bar called the Hollow Lantern. It wasn't much to look at. Cracked windows, flickering neon sign buzzing unevenly, and a rusty door that creaked with every gust of wind. The kind of place only those desperate for a drink or looking to disappear for a while ever ended up inside. That night, a man named Carter stumbled in just before midnight, dragging his feet like the weight of the world was crushing him. The bar was nearly empty, save for a few regulars nursing their sorrows in silence. The bartender, an older man with hollow eyes and a permanent scowl, didn't bother asking Carter what he wanted. He slid a glass across the counter without a word, and Carter took a slow sip. As the hours slipped by, Carter noticed something strange. The patrons were watching him, but their eyes weren't quite right. They were too still, too dark, like their gaze was trying to pierce through him, but also something else, something deeper. Every once in a while, one of them would whisper a name, barely audible, but with a sharpness that cut the air. Carter's own name. Trying to shake the unease, he decided to leave. But the door wouldn't budge. He tugged, shoved, but it was as if it had been welded shut. Panic crept in. The bartender just smirked, polishing a glass with unnatural, slow, deliberate movements, as if he was enjoying Carter's growing fear. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, a chorus of voices chanting something indecipherable but filled with menace. The lights dimmed until the bar was bathed in shadow. Carter felt hands brush against him, cold, clammy, barely there, but enough to send chills down his spine. He spun around, but no one moved from their seats. Then he saw it. The reflections in the bar's grimy mirror didn't match the people sitting in front of him. Their faces twisted into grotesque masks, grinning wide with teeth too many, eyes burning like embers. They were something else, something that had been waiting for him. Carter's breathing quickened. He slammed his fists on the counter and begged the bartender to let him out. The man leaned in close, whispering in a voice like dry leaves scraping, "You came here looking for a way to forget. But this place remembers everything, and it never lets go." The mirror shattered all at once. The shadows spilled forward, swallowing Carter whole. The patrons watched in silence, their eyes now perfectly still again, as the door finally swung open. Outside, the city hummed with life, unaware of what had just happened inside the hollow lantern. No one ever saw Carter again. But sometimes, when the night is dark and the wind carries a faint whisper, people say you can hear his voice in the hollow lantern, begging to be let out, caught forever in that disturbing, unending nightmare behind the bar.
Story number 3.
It started as just another late night at the Rusty Nail, a dive bar nestled in the forgotten corner of the city where the streetlights flickered like dying fireflies. The regulars, mostly night shift workers and lost souls, were few. The hum of old neon signs buzzing above battered wooden stools. The air smelled of stale beer, cigarette smoke, and something else, something sour and almost metallic that no one could quite place. That night, a man walked in wearing a trench coat pulled tight against the chill, even though the bar was stuffy and warm inside. His eyes were hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat, but when he sat down at the far end of the counter, the bartender, Jerry, noticed his hands trembling, pale and knotted like they hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. Jerry, used to the weird and the wild, thought maybe the guy had just had a rough day. A few patrons gave the man curious glances, but he didn't say much. Instead, he ordered a drink, just a glass of water. It was strange in a place where whiskey was king, but no one questioned it. After a long sip, the man's gaze settled on a jukebox in the corner, one that hadn't worked in years, or so everyone thought. Then the power cut out. The bar was swallowed by darkness, broken only by the faint glow of emergency exit signs and the trembling candle on the counter. Nervous murmurs floated through the air as Jerry fumbled for a flashlight. The man in the trench coat didn't move. Suddenly, from the jukebox, a crackling burst of static erupted, followed by a haunting melody, a slow, dragging blues tune that no one remembered ever being installed. The lights flickered weakly as if the bar was straining to stay alive, and the music seemed to crawl through the walls like some ancient, unseen creature. Then the whispering started. It was low, unintelligible at first, like the wind moving through broken glass, but then it sharpened. Words barely audible but soaked in menace. The patrons froze, eyes darting. The man in the trench coat leaned forward, his head tilting like a raven listening for a predator's call. "I'm going to tell you a secret," he said, voice hoarse and raw. "This place, it remembers." He told them about a night decades ago when the Rusty Nail was new and vibrant, before it fell into shadow. A bartender much like Jerry had been found dead behind the counter. No witnesses, no clues, just a pool of dark blood that spread like ink beneath the floorboards. They said the man had been cursed by a mysterious patron who vanished into the night, leaving behind a glass stained with something no one wanted to name. The bar never truly recovered. Strange things started happening, drinks that spilled on their own, shadows that moved against the light, whispers that chilled even the hardest hearts. Patrons swore they saw faces in the mirrors, faces twisted in silent screams. Jerry had heard the rumors but brushed them off as local legends until that night. The jukebox stopped suddenly. The bar plunged deeper into silence. Then the man stood slowly, revealing scars beneath his coat, deep, dark lines that looked like they had been carved into flesh with a blade. "Some debts don't die," he whispered. "They drink with you." With that, he turned and vanished into the darkness, leaving behind the lingering scent of rust and decay. The power flickered back on, but the bar was different now, colder, heavier. Jerry found a glass on the floor where the man had sat. It was filled with water, but beneath the surface, a faint red swirl pulsed like a heartbeat. No one ever saw the trenchcoat man again. But late at night, when the lights flicker and the jukebox hums with no coin, the Rusty Nail remembers, and it waits.
Story number 4.
It was one of those nights where the city seemed swallowed by fog, the streetlights barely cutting through the thick haze. The bar was tucked away in a forgotten alley, its neon sign flickering erratically, casting ghostly shadows on the cracked pavement. The kind of place that didn't advertise itself much. Word of mouth was enough to keep a certain crowd coming. Jake had heard about the bar from a friend who claimed it was haunted, but with a story so wild, no one believed it. Being a skeptic, Jake decided to check it out. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of stale beer and something else, something faintly metallic like old blood. The place was dim, with a few scattered patrons hunched over their drinks, eyes glazed or staring into the abyss of their glasses. The bartender, an older man with a face creased like worn leather, didn't speak much, just slid drinks across the counter with a hollow look. Jake took a seat at the far end, near the restroom door, and ordered a whiskey. The bartender gave a curt nod and poured. As Jake sipped, he noticed a group in the corner. 3 men, laughing too loudly, their voices carrying an unsettling edge. Their eyes were dark, almost black, and their smiles didn't reach their eyes. There was something wrong with them, something Jake couldn't quite place. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the bar seemed to grow colder, the fog outside seeping in like a living thing. Jake felt an itch crawling under his skin, like tiny insects moving beneath it. The group in the corner stood abruptly and began moving toward him, their laughter twisting into low, guttural growls. Jake's heart hammered in his chest as they closed in, surrounding him. "Ever wonder why this place never empties?" one hissed, his voice like broken glass. "Because it feeds." Jake stumbled back, reaching for the door, but it slammed shut. The lights cut out completely, plunging the bar into darkness. Then, one by one, the lights flickered back on, but something was off. The patrons' faces had twisted into grotesque masks, 2 wide smiles, eyes bleeding black tears. Jake realized then what the friend had meant by haunted. The bar didn't just have ghosts, it was alive, hungry. It trapped people, feeding off their fear, twisting them into something else, keeping them trapped inside its walls forever. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing he saw before the darkness claimed him was his own reflection in the mirror behind the bar, his eyes bleeding black, his smile far too wide. No one ever saw Jake again. But on foggy nights when the neon sign flickers erratically, locals say you can hear his laughter mixing with the growls, calling out for the next visitor who dares to sit at the bar.